Isaac's wife was in the labor room, slipping between life and death. The doctors had just told him, "We need to perform an emergency surgery now, or we'll lose her." But there was a problem. Isaac had nothing. No savings, no help, and no one left to call. The only person he could think of was Mr. Williams, his boss. But when Isaac got to Mr. Williams' gate, breathless and shaking, he never expected to find what he saw. And what happened that day taught him a lesson he would never forget. That afternoon, Isaac was running down the quiet street in Sutton Coldfield like his life depended on it. Barefoot, breathless, his heart pounding so loud, he could barely hear his own thoughts. His eyes wild with fear, he burst through the tall black gate, the heavy metal clanging open with a loud bang. And right there in front of him, standing beside a freshly parked car, was Mr. and Mrs. Williams and their 16-year-old daughter, Tamara. Isaac dropped to his knees before them, panting, trying to form words. But before he could speak, Tom, a sharp, hot, humiliating slap landed on his cheek. From Mrs. Williams. "How dare you?" she shouted, her voice cracking with rage. "How dare you leave my daughter stranded at school for over an hour? You useless man." Isaac clutched his cheek, the sting barely registering through the chaos in his head. I'm sorry," he stammered. "Please. It was an emergency. My wife is in labor and—" He paused, his voice broke. "But something went wrong. They said she's bleeding. The doctors need to operate immediately. I came to beg. Please. I need help. Please, sir." He turned to Mr. Williams, eyes pleading, heart on the floor. But the man just scoffed. "You left my daughter in danger, and now you're talking about your useless poor wife? You're truly pathetic." Isaac dropped his head lower. He was trembling. "I swear I didn't mean to. Please, help me." But before he could finish, Tamara stepped forward. Calmly, without saying a word, she picked up a small bucket of water sitting by the porch and poured it all over him, right there on the ground, in front of the whole family, soaking his clothes, his skin, his pride. Isaac didn't froze. He sat there, drenched and broken. They had mistreated him for years, talked to him like he was nothing. But this broke him the most. Watching Tamara, a 16-year-old girl he had watched grow from diapers, carried her school bag for 8 years now. A girl young enough to be his daughter, raise a bucket of cold water and left it splashing all over him. The water soaked through his shirt, his skin, his bones. But what truly stung wasn't the cold. It was the humiliation. And all because he couldn't pay his debts. He wanted to provide a better life for his family. Because he was poor. And in their eyes, that meant he was less than human. And as the water dripped from his head to his feet, right there in front of everyone, Isaac realized something. If God didn't part the Red Sea for him now, he was going to drown. As Isaac bowed his head, tears rolled quietly down his face. His heart was breaking, but he couldn't even move. That was when Mr. Williams leaned in slowly and whispered right into his ear, "God hates you." Then he stood up, calm, cold, and walked into the house with his family like nothing had just happened. Isaac kneeled there, frozen. Did he just hear that? He didn't scream. He didn't fight. He just stood there, completely still, like his soul had just been knocked out of him. Then, without saying a word, he stood up, turned, and walked away. No shoes. He didn't even know where he was going. He thought this was the worst it could get, unaware it was just the beginning. Isaac walked down the road barefoot, his mind completely blank. His eyes were open, but he wasn't seeing anything. He wasn't walking. He was drifting, like a ghost. Tears streamed down his face as he mumbled prayers he didn't even understand anymore. His shirt was soaked. His heart, even heavier. He kept replaying the words, "God hates you." They echoed in his ears like thunder. Suddenly, a car came out of nowhere, speeding straight toward him. It swerved and stopped right in front of him with a loud screech. Splash! Dirty water flew up and soaked his clothes. It hit him right in the face. He stood there shocked, not even blinking. He wiped his face slowly, confused. Then he looked up. It was a police car. His heart skipped. Before he could even move, another police car pulled up behind it. Then another. Sirens were loud. The blue and red lights flashed in his eyes. Isaac stepped back, scared. His whole body was wet and shaking. He didn't understand what was going on. Why were they here? And why him? His heart skipped. Before he could process what was happening, a loud voice barked through a megaphone. "Don't move. Stay exactly where you are." His head snapped up. Police cars. Everywhere. For no, 5 of them. Lights flashing. Tires screeching. They surrounded him. Guns raised. Isaac's hands shot into the air. Please. What did I do? One of the officers stepped forward, stern-faced. Are you Mr. Isaac Whitmore? Isaac blinked. Yes, I'm Isaac. You're under arrest on suspicion of fraud and identity theft. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say may be used against you in a court of law. Isaac shook his head, trembling. Fraud? No, I didn't. Put your hands where we can see them. Isaac fell to his knees in the middle of the road, hands raised. Please, he cried. My wife, she's in the hospital, she's dying. I'm just trying to find help. Please, I'm begging you. His voice cracked. His whole body shook. You can't take me now, my family needs me. One of the officers walked up and shouted. Shut up. Isaac flinched. Tears poured down his face. His voice grew weaker. I didn't do anything. I swear. I didn't do anything. I'm not a criminal. I just need to save my wife. She's all I have. The other policemen didn't even blink. They pulled his hands behind his back. Click. The next thing he knew, cold metal cuffs locked around his wrists. He was pushed into the back of a police van, soaking wet, still trying to understand what had just happened. His only thought, God, is this how I go down? For something I don't even understand. Suddenly, Isaac's phone started ringing. Again, and again, and again, but they wouldn't let him answer. He kept glancing at the screen, heart racing. He knew that number. It was the hospital. He turned to the officer beside him. Please just let me pick it. It's the hospital, my wife, please. The officer snatched the phone and held it up, staring at the screen. Then he looked at Isaac with cold eyes and slipped it back into his pocket. Drive, he muttered. Isaac's heart dropped. Tears spilled from his eyes as they drove. He was shaking now, not from fear, but from helplessness. My wife is dying, he sobbed. Please. I'm not a thief. I'm not a criminal. I'm just trying to save her. Please. Nobody listened. Not one word. When they reached the station, they didn't ask questions. They didn't check the call. They didn't care. They shoved him out of the van, dragged him into the building, and tossed him into the cell like garbage. The heavy door slammed behind him. And in that cold, dark silence, Isaac broke down. Not because of the cell, not even because of the arrest, but because he didn't know if his wife would still be alive when morning came. Back at the hospital, she was crying hard, loud. Her voice was shaking. I'll never forgive him, she kept saying. I'll never forgive Isaac for this. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Her body was weak. Her face looked tired and full of pain. The nurse standing next to her looked down quietly, because what just happened in the theater was heartbreaking. Before they took her in for surgery, she had already been pushing for hours, crying, bleeding, screaming in pain. But the baby wouldn't come. Her body was getting tired. The doctors said they had to act fast, so they began calling Isaac, but he wasn't picking, unaware to them that Isaac has been locked up in cell. So the doctors had to take the decision and rushed her in for an emergency C-section. But it was already too late. One of the babies was already too late. He didn't survive. One twin lived. The other didn't make it. Now Ruth lay there, not just in pain from the surgery, but with a broken heart. She looked at the nurse and said, he wasn't there. I begged him. I needed him. And he left me. Then she turned her face to the wall and whispered, I hate him. And she said nothing else after that. The next morning, just as the sun peeked through the small, dusty window of the cell, the police officer walked in, no expression on his face. Isaac looked up slowly, his face swollen from crying all night, eyes red and tired. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. He had spent the entire night praying and asking God, why me? Isaac sat up slowly from the cold floor, expecting another round of questioning, or maybe worse. But the officer didn't say a word. No greeting. No explanation. He just walked in, removed the cuffs from Isaac's hands, and gestured for him to follow. Isaac followed quietly. His heart pounded with confusion. His eyes scanned the station. No one met his gaze. No one said a thing. They walked into a small office. The officer finally turned to him. There might have been a mistake, he said plainly. Isaac's eyes widened. A mistake, he asked. What's happening? The officer took a breath, then said, there's been further investigation, and the account involved in the fraud is now allegedly being linked to a man named Mr. Williams. Isaac froze. My boss, he said, barely believing what he was hearing. How does that have anything to do with me? The officer shook his head. We're still investigating. But for now, you're free to go." Isaac just stood there, stunned. He didn't know whether to cry, scream, or drop to his knees. He walked out of that station with no shoes, no money, and 100 thoughts racing through his mind. It didn't make sense to Isaac. He had never stolen a thing in his life. He didn't even know how to use the banking app they were accusing him of transferring money from. And then it hit him, a faint memory. From his first week on the job, he remembered sitting in Mr. Williams' office, nervous, holding a pen, and being handed a big brown envelope filled with forms. His boss had smiled and said, "Just routine stuff, payroll, pension, insurance. You know how it is." Isaac had nodded. He was desperate for the job. He didn't read a word. He just signed. All of them, one by one. Now he realized one of those forms wasn't just for salary. It was to open a business account, under his name, for a company he had never even heard of before. A company that Mr. Williams had been secretly using to move stolen funds. Isaac didn't know it back then, but his name was the one tied to the fraud. Isaac didn't waste a second. The moment he stepped out of that station, he took off running, barefoot, all the way to the hospital. His heart raced faster than his legs. He didn't even stop to breathe. All he could think about was his wife. Maybe she was okay now. Maybe the surgery went well. Maybe he could still explain everything. But the moment he stepped into the hospital room, he froze. She was sitting up in bed, her eyes swollen from tears. Their eyes met, but there was no love there, no relief, only pain, only rage. "Get out," she screamed the moment she saw him. "Don't come near me." Isaac's heart dropped. "Baby, please, please just listen. Just give me a second to expel." "I said leave," she screamed again, louder this time. Tears poured down her cheeks. She pointed to the door like he was some stranger, like she never knew him. "You left me, Isaac. You left me to die. My child died inside me while you were out there. Wherever you were." He tried to move closer, but she threw the pillow at him. Then the doctors rushed in. One of them pulled Isaac aside and said calmly, but firmly, "Sir, I'm sorry, but we have to ask you to leave. She's not in a good state, and you're making it worse." Isaac just stood there, frozen, shaking. He looked back one more time, but she had already turned her face to the wall, like he didn't exist. Isaac walked down an empty street, still smelling of the police cell, his shirt stained with dry sweat and dust. He had told himself he'd just go home, wash up, maybe sit on the floor and think, maybe cry in private. But as he walked up the street, something stopped him cold. All his belongings, his mattress, buckets, plates, his daughter's torn school bag, were outside, dumped like garbage. He froze. His landlady stood nearby with her arms folded. "You think you can stay in my house for free? You haven't paid rent in 5 months, Isaac." He didn't argue. He didn't say a word. He just walked slowly, bent down, and from the middle of the heap, picked up one thing, his Bible. And with that, he walked away. He kept walking until he found an uncompleted building down the road. Cement dust everywhere, no doors, no windows. He stepped inside, sat on a block, and broke down in tears. Then he reached and pulled out the Bible. No plan, no direction. He opened it at random, and the first verse his eyes landed on was John 15 verse 2. "He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful." He stared at the verse, then shut the Bible slowly, and whispered through cracked lips, "I don't even know what this means." What Isaac didn't realize was that verse was not random, a prophetic revelation. God was pruning him, and his life was about to change forever. Isaac hadn't cried again since he left the uncompleted building. His eyes were too dry for more tears, but his chest still felt like it was caving in. For some reason, he found himself walking back to the hospital. Not to beg, not to argue. He just needed to be close to her, even if she wouldn't talk to him. He walked slowly through the hospital hallway. No plan, no words. Then he heard something, a sound coming from one of the rooms. Wailing, not just crying. Deep, loud sobbing, like someone who had lost everything. Isaac paused. The hospital room door was slightly open. He walked closer, then gently pushed it open. Inside was an elderly man, frail, thin, gray-bearded. His eyes were red from crying. His hospital gown hung loosely on his skinny frame. Isaac stepped in slowly. "Sir, are you okay?" The old man wiped his eyes, then whispered, "I'm just hungry. I haven't eaten since yesterday." He looked away in shame. "No one has come to see me." Not even one person. I used to have a big family. But now, I'm just alone. I've been here for weeks. Isaac's throat tightened. This man looked like someone's grandfather. Someone who deserved better. Someone who had seen life and was now being forgotten. Isaac hadn't eaten either. Not since the day before. He had barely a few pounds in his pocket. Maybe enough for one plate of food. But he turned around, walked down to the small hospital canteen, and bought food. Not for himself. For the old man. He returned, gently placed it in front of him, and said, "Eat, sir. Please." The old man's eyes welled up with tears again. But this time, it wasn't sadness. It was shock. And then something strange happened. As Isaac turned to leave, the man called out to him, "Wait. Please come back." Isaac turned. "Yes, sir." The man reached under his bed, shakily pulled out a small, brown paper, and said something that would change Isaac's life. "Call this line if you ever need anything." Isaac didn't have anywhere else to go. After he was released from the cell, thrown out of his house, and rejected by his wife, he started sleeping on a bench just outside the hospital gates. Cold nights. No food. No peace. Just pain. But even in that broken state, every morning he still went inside the hospital to check on the old man. At first, it was just to make sure he was still breathing. Then it became small talks. Then laughter. Then tears. They became friends. Isaac would help him clean up, get water, push his wheelchair, pray with him. Some days he would go around begging small change just to buy food for the old man, even if it meant he wouldn't eat. He didn't understand why, but something about helping this man made his own pain feel lighter. One morning, as Isaac helped adjust the man's pillow, the old man suddenly said, "You know what amazes me about you? You still show up." The old man held Isaac's hand gently, his wrinkled fingers trembling. "You've been good to me, son," he said. "Not because you had to. Not because you had anything to gain. But because it's who you are." Isaac looked down, ashamed. "But what has that brought me? My wife hates me. My child is gone. I've lost everything. I'm sleeping on the streets." The old man smiled softly, even through his pain. "You've lost what money can buy, but not who you are." He sat up slowly and added, "Never let suffering turn you into someone you're not. This world will try to punish you for being kind, for being loyal, for being honest, but those are the things heaven rewards." Isaac blinked away tears. The man squeezed his hand again. "Don't let bitterness grow where faith once lived. Hold on, son." Then he paused and reached under his pillow. "I want to give you something," the old man said in a trembling voice, reaching slowly beneath his hospital pillow. He pulled out a wooden box, worn but locked tight. Isaac looked confused. "Sir, what's this?" "Open it," Mr. Darren whispered. Isaac opened the box. Inside were neat stacks of documents, property deeds, bank slips, share certificates. Things Isaac had never even held before in his life. He blinked, stunned. "I don't understand." The old man smiled sadly. "My name is not just Darren. I'm the founder and CEO of Mimibai Holdings. I built it from the ground up. Years ago, I had everything: money, success, people all around me. I gave and gave and gave. But when I got sick, everyone disappeared." He paused. His voice cracked. "My siblings, my staff, the people I once fed, they all vanished. They only came around when money was flowing. Not one of them has stepped into this hospital since I fell ill. Not one call. Not one visit." Tears rolled down Isaac's cheeks. He couldn't say a word. "I've watched you," the man continued. "You have nothing, not even a roof over your head. And still, you shared your last coin to feed a stranger like me. You've come every single day. You care, when no one else did." He took a deep breath and looked Isaac in the eyes. "My final wish is simple, that everything I've worked for would be used for good, for people who truly need help. And I can't trust the people I've known all my life to do that. But I trust you, Isaac." Isaac's lips trembled. "I know this is a lot, but don't let your pain make you bitter. Don't let life change your heart. Stay kind. Stay grounded in God. You may be the one to do what I couldn't with all my wealth. Use it to truly change lives." And at that moment, Isaac fell to his knees, holding the box to his chest, weeping, not just because of what he was given, but because someone finally saw him and chose him. Isaac was still sitting quietly beside the old man, clutching the box gently, his heart heavy with gratitude and disbelief. Everything felt like a dream. Then suddenly, the door opened. A nurse peeked in. "Mr. Isaac," she said softly. "Your wife, she's asking for you." He froze. My wife. Yes. She wants to see you. His heart jumped. Without even thinking, he gently placed the box back on the old man's bed and bolted out of the room. Mr. Darren smiled, running through the corridor like his legs were on fire. His chest was tight, his breathing shallow. She asked for me. He didn't stop until he got to her door. And there she was, sitting up in bed, pale and tired, but awake. He dropped to his knees beside her, tears already pouring down his face. He couldn't speak at first. He just held her hand and wept. I thought I lost you, he whispered. You don't know the things I've been through. He explained everything to her. I didn't mean to abandon you. I was just trying to save you. Everything fell apart. I lost everything, even you. She looked at him, eyes softening. I know, she said. I'm sorry too. He cried harder and laid his head on her lap. She rested her hand on his back, and in that quiet moment, the pain between them started to melt. Later that day, Isaac paid every hospital bill in full, not just for his wife, but for 3 other struggling families he'd met during his visits. Then he helped his wife pack her things, and as they stepped out of the hospital doors together, Isaac held her hand like it was the most valuable thing he had. Waiting outside was a black car. Mr. Darren was already seated in the back, smiling. Are you ready? The old man asked. Isaac nodded. They all left the hospital together. Isaac, his wife, and the man who changed his life. He moved into Mr. Darren's home, took care of him daily, and began to handle the affairs of Mimibai Holdings. From sleeping on hospital floors to owning one of the most reputable companies in the city, it was nothing short of divine. And as for Mr. Williams, the former boss, he was later arrested and convicted for multiple counts of fraud. 50 years. Everything he owned was seized. His fancy house, his cars, his fake image, gone. A few weeks later, Isaac and his wife had settled into their new life. The house was peaceful. Mr. Darren was healing slowly with good care. Isaac had taken over the company and was now juggling board meetings, charity planning, and adjusting to fatherhood. They needed help. A nanny who could assist his wife and keep Mr. Darren company when Isaac was away. So, interviews were set. Applicants came in, one after the other. Some looked polished, others desperate. Isaac sat in the living room, going through the list, half listening as each person walked in. Then, the door opened again. He didn't look up immediately, but then he heard the sound of familiar footsteps. Shaky, uneven. A teenage girl's and a tired-looking woman stepped into the room. The air shifted. Isaac looked up slowly and froze. Mrs. Williams. Her once perfect hair was now tangled and dry. Her skin was pale, lips cracked. The daughter, Tamara, looked nothing like the proud, loud girl that once poured water on him. She was thin, worn out, hollow. They froze too. No one said a word for a long second. Just silence. Heavy, awkward. Then suddenly, Mrs. Williams dropped to her knees. Isaac, please. Her voice cracked. Her pride shattered. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but we're hungry. We have nowhere else to go. I'm not here to beg for revenge. I'm just a mother trying to survive. Please, if not for me, for the girls. Tamara looked away in shame. Her eyes glistened with tears. Isaac couldn't speak. He just stared at them. And in that moment, Isaac remembered the verse. John 15 verse 2. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. It hit him like a whisper from heaven. Suddenly, everything made sense. The betrayal, the false arrest, the hospital cell, the empty pockets, the heartbreak, the nights on cold cement floors. It wasn't punishment. It was pruning. Because sometimes, what feels like loss is really God's way of clearing out the noise, cutting off the job, the relationship, the comfort, even the pride, so you can grow deeper roots in the purpose He truly prepared for you. He wasn't being buried. He was being planted. And now, fruit was finally starting to grow, not just in wealth, but in peace, in healing, in purpose. He looked at Mrs. Williams still on her knees, and he didn't feel rage. He didn't feel proud. He just felt grateful. Because now he knew, when God prunes you, it's only because He's preparing you to bloom.